Rachel's up next. She was originally a chef, but rather, she was a former chef. And had a career change, which is often exciting. And she currently works at Zoar Outdoors as a Canopy Tour Manager. And she spent her season before Zoar leading youth in college adventure programs for Project Adventure. She's taken her love of adventure and experiential learning and creativity to new heights by overseeing the Zoar program, and takes a special interest in new guide and trip leader training programs. So please welcome Rachel.
Okay, great. So here we go. How many of you think the word diversity means ethnicity? Thank you. How many of you immediately go, eek, or, oh God, anytime someone mentions the word diversity in the workplace? Thank you. How many of you think the word diversity is an overused buzzword? Thank you. And how many of you have ever heard someone say, oh no, we don't do that, in terms of something outdoorsy? Thank you. So, as it turns out, diversity in our industry is a lot more than just black and white, as you can tell by the snappy title. And that looking to the future of our industry, diversity is actually supremely important. Despite its bad rap as a solicitor of cringeworthy gut check moments in most meetings, or the sense that it's a buzzword, it can actually give your business a huge competitive advantage, revitalize your community, and create a space for people to connect to one another and the outdoors in a totally new way. Reflecting on the past, the problems we face in terms of growing and fostering diversity in our industry are that historically, we as an industry have looked at diversity as mainly black and white, all about ethnicity, right? We've also made the perception that the topic of diversity is a hard topic. It's touchy. It's better left on a shelf somewhere for someone else to deal with or handle. It's also been said that diversity, the word itself alone, is a buzzword, it's overused, and unfortunately that's a huge blocker on the path to innovation. Lastly, to those not already actively engaged in our industry, the outdoors can seem either too expensive, unapproachable, or they just don't plain belong in it. So, I'm going to tell you how diversity can become a competitive advantage, how you can take that E factor out of actually starting the conversation in your business and in your community as well. I'll also give some insight as to why representation in our industry matters for both guests and staff, and why diversity in the industry is so incredibly important. So, how do you know my ideas are going to work? And will serve your company and your industry. So for starters, I've been lucky enough to create and facilitate this at my own workplaces by opening up my own personal story to people, collaborating with other like-minded, insane people that believe the possible to be possible 100% of the time, and using a systematic approach to be able to create more diversity in our industry and in our community as well. We've created a pretty significant increase since 2015 when I came on at Zoar Outdoor. And we've also created a community-wide dialogue that has allowed us to start an initiative within our community that deals mainly with diversity as a growth strategy for local businesses in the area, and also revitalization within our community. So I'll get a little bit into how to create more diversity in your community and in your business, but I'll also mainly here focus on how to create a learning culture, which is sort of the first stepstone to being able to start that conversation. So what is a learning culture exactly? It's starting with the idea that it's okay to make some mistakes, and really, it's all from a place of understanding, compassion, from discovery. It's a context that says even though we might step on some landmines along the way and get pretty uncomfortable, it's all good because we're about learning here and growing as an industry. Creating a learning culture is actually easier than you might think. So we all do this in our businesses quite frequently. We've had, guests that have been nervous at one point or another. Maybe it's a new builder or installer that's just starting out on the job, or it could be a new facilitator or guide that has never done this before, but they're starting out. And slowly over time, they start to gain confidence through taking that initial risk at ground school or through study. And then they gain forward momentum and excitement as the course of the job goes on. So creating a learning culture within your business is really no different. Discomfort is actually a good thing. It tells us we're going in the right direction. Head toward the fear, right? So the first step in creating a learning culture is starting a context of we are going to make mistakes. And through those mistakes, forge a new path. So the second step to creating diversity and a learning culture is empowering your staff. You can do this by creating a task force of change agents within your organization with the intention of discovering new possibilities and creating an inclusive program. Lastly, no matter what you do, you want to take action. Schedule meetings, outings, play days, all with the goal of sharing and applying what you've discovered. This might look like a community event, employee-led recruitment events, workshops, trainings, programs all centered around your discoveries, or even adjustments to your current program. We tried this at Zoar this past season, and the first meeting of the minds was very interesting, to say the least. It was, how do I put it, full of landmines and lots of discoveries, paradigm shifts galore. We had staff from every category you could think of when talking about diversity. We had folks of varying socioeconomic status, gender, association, younger people, older people, even political affiliations, whatever it looks like. And the magic of it all, though, was that when a group of passionate, committed people got together with the intention of making the industry more approachable and inclusive through our businesses, we were able to have conversations from a place of love, a place of acceptance, and in the context of a learning culture. Landmines were what made the conversation. There was a willingness to just go splat and say something so wrong that you couldn't help but make a difference in the industry just because everyone was being so real and revealed. So hopefully when you attend our workshop tomorrow, 2:45, mark your calendar, we'll learn more how to create and support diversity both in your business and in your community as well. So here's the thing. At the heart of it all, people just want to feel included. They want to feel connected. Embracing and fostering diversity in our industry is a means to include people. And the mechanism by which to do so is our industry. Pay for play, building an installation, experiential learning, whatever your flavor is, add into the outdoors. It's a perfect dance of connecting humanity. From all walks of life, and it's not a bad start, you guys. It's totally rad means. I mean, we're outside, we get to play, you know? What better way to take a stand for human connection than in our industry by embracing and fostering diversity? So I'll share a quick story with you about a 7-year-old girl who moved from Roxbury, Boston, which is a very urban, very diverse part of the city, to Middleborough, Massachusetts. Very rural, very one-flavor town. I'll put it this way. Middleborough is the cranberry capital of the world, so it had that going for it. It's pretty amazing. Ocean spray. Needless to say, this girl found herself pretty lost and disconnected from all that was familiar to her, and in total struggle. Absolutely out of place and feeling like, she was that classic representation of one of these things is not like the other. Remember that one from Sesame Street? Our girl actually was enrolled in a YMCA camp after her first painful year in a new school. And how many of you got your start at a camp? Summer camp? Thank you. All right. It was here at this camp that she got to put on her first harness and shimmy up a tree or two. It was pretty cool. So Thursday was ropes day. It was a big day. And there was a counselor in a sea of faces that looked a lot like hers. And that really is what made all the difference. She felt included, she felt loved, she felt embraced, and even, connected with finally in a place where otherwise that had never happened before. And as it turns out, that was the avenue by which our girl, if you haven't figured out by now, is this girl, made her way from the cultural norm that I had grown up with into the outdoor industry. So, Black people don't do that was a very real statement I heard coming up as a reformed city kid. And, by that, I mean climb trees, play outside, go swimming, jump in the river, whatever it looked like. And I'm sure I'm not the only one to grow up with some kind of limiting conversation based on cultural or societal norm. The point is that because I had a liaison who looked a little like me and went to a really amazing camp that had some skin in the diversity game, no pun intended, I went from being an enthusiastic kid on ropes day to an avid rock and ice climber, to an outdoor facilitator, zipline Canopy Tour Manager, and now a keynote speaker at the coolest conference in the land in the outdoor industry, advocating for change in our field. So who knew? How cool, pretty amazing. I've been lucky enough to literally be diversity in my industry and in my community. So in acting as the Ropes Program and Adventure Director at an enrichment center in Massachusetts, I was one, if not only, the only person of color on staff. And every day I would look around and I would see kids that were me. That 7-year-old girl from Roxbury, totally removed. And I felt a sense of responsibility to be that liaison for them. I've created a space for diversity in my workplaces and within my local community with great success, using concepts like competitive marketing, openness, learning culture, representation, and discovering the importance of human connection, all of which we'll talk about at the workshop. My ideas work because, luckily for me, I've already lived them out, and I'm committed to creating the same context in businesses so that you can make possible for others what was possible for me. Now, I'd like for us all to think about the possibilities for our industry. If everyone really got that the outdoor industry is truly open to anyone, no matter what their cultural messages are, socioeconomic status, gender identification, sexual orientation, any of that might be. I would love it if you would imagine the difference we could make in someone's life, within your industry, and in the world from that place. The innovation, the creative and competitive advantages we could have in the oneness and connection people would feel when diversity is fully embraced and fostered within our industry. Looking to the future, imagine if our industry looked like what it's always been intended to be, which is a way for people to experience the outdoors in acceptance and love, and to do so merely as humans being outside. The good news is that the evidence is really already starting to show up right here in front of us. And in the picture on the right, far right here, little kid in a kayak, that is Aria, the coolest 4-year-old in the land, and also my kid. So she's quite literally grown up in this industry, from crawling around and doing like tummy time at Zoar Outdoor, on the front lawn, to jumping into kayaks and harassing zipline guides on the busiest days of the season. And because of the innovations in approaching diversity within our industry, and because of the willingness of owners and operators, trainers and staff to take on the discussion of diversity and inclusion within our industry, maybe someday she'll have the chance to speak in front of you as well. So I don't know if that's her path, it might be, really, but I do know that if we keep moving forward, and if we keep looking to the future, maybe she will. Thank you.